I'm trying to make is that you cannot separate advanced technology from spiritism and Stargate. Spiritism and Stargates go hand in hand. And for the record, when Antarctica was visited by Obama, by the Pope, and by what's his name, Kirill, the head of the, and I don't know what the official title is, Patriarch of, I guess, the Russian Orthodox Church, it was fascinating that prior to that, Russia had sent the equivalent of their Operation High Jump down there, supposedly carrying the Ark of Gabriel. The Ark of Gabriel is not the Ark of the Covenant. But what is suspicious to me is this, is that it was some form of power source. Now, over the years, in 2005 through 2008, I was on talk radio, I think that was in the Q-Files days, I'm pretty sure it was, and talking about how the generals, and you and I talked about this, the ones in the Spec Ops community were talking about all of that which was coming through the gates. Now, I know at that point, you probably thought, Steve has slipped the last part of his frontal lobotomy or lobe, But the point being is that everything was centered around Antarctica. And now what we're seeing is everything centered around Antarctica. And I'd like to put this into perspective. Everybody seemingly touched down or met at one point at Patagonia. Patagonia means big feet. Magellan specifically details, and I detail that in my book, the fact of running into the giants of Patagonia. And now the History Channel and others have come out and tried to discredit that. But, the point being is you cannot separate Stargates from technology, advanced technology. And I want to put an end to this, that the giants are some kind of big oafs that walk around and club people and eat them. That's true. But their fathers taught their children, the fallen angels taught their children, the giants, all of the advanced astrology, astronomy, advanced science, technology, and all that. And so when I'm told by people that do nothing but go out and try and find that stuff in top secret military stuff that doesn't even know, look, I'm not in the military. I don't know them. I just know them by code names. And so the thing is that they're looking for this stuff, and now we see everybody converging in the Antarctic and talking about the gates down there. That's something I don't think I made clear. It is the gates in the Antarctic that seem to have the world, pun intended, on edge, and basically focusing on that. Now, how about holes on the poles? We've only recently been getting new photographs, if you will, satellite photos of the holes in the poles that Admiral Byrd talked about, and that didn't appear. They have been censored for 17 years. Now they're showing up. Is it possible, Tom? This is rhetorical. I know your answer already, but let's do it this way, not put it rhetorically. Isn't it strange that Hillary Clinton, who is a practicing witch by her own statements, and she's talking about alien disclosure. There was a story Barack Obama's talking about alien disclosure, and everybody who's talking about alien disclosure, except, you and I and the Christians who are approaching this, I'm not saying we're the only ones, I'm saying, and the Christians who are approaching this from a biblical perspective, but it's the order of the day, and forgive me, it's the order of the day, and it won't go away.
Yeah, it took me a moment. Somebody walked into my office while I was trying to do radio, and they were interrupting me, and I completely lost my train of thought. But they're gone, and it took me a moment to remember what I was going to say about Capital Eddie and the research that you and I were doing some years ago, quite a few years ago, I guess, at Q-Files. But a few years after your and my investigation, and I do think this was around 2005. But Cappelletti followed the expedition that they had with a book that he titled The Human Archaeology of Faith, Lunar, Planetary, and Interstellar Relics of Exploration. So he continues to push this idea that there are artifacts of alien design that were here on Earth and in other places. And again, we're talking about a Penn State University guy that's calling to the United Nations to create rules around which these extraterrestrial artifacts can be investigated. But he wrote that book. It was published by McFarland Publishing, in which he discusses that very shadow of the Colossus Leviathan conspiracy that you and I had been investigating. And he admits to making 2 voyages at that time to the North Pole on board the Russian icebreaker Yamal. And he writes in his book, I've got the quote, during the second voyage, as we returned from the pole, we landed by helicopter on Rudolph Island in Franz Josef Land. And he then described his team's excursion to the site that you and I had been doing news reports about, to examine the remains, get this, of an enormous spacecraft. And now, he then goes on to claim that this was only a Soviet TB-3 bomber whose destruction the former Soviet Union had also buried as deeply as the government could. But again, how and why surveying a crashed airplane could be described as needing international laws or treaties to preserve alien artifacts on other planets, as well as having the power to alter humanity via aerospace archaeology, which is another thing that he goes into. It simply doesn't add up. But then he takes several pages of his book to focus on me and you. And I've got one of the quotes here. This aerospace archaeology, taken up as a central element of an argument for the presence of artifacts of extraterrestrial intelligence here on Earth, in a series of articles called Stargate, Ancient Rituals, and Those Invited Through the Portal. Remember those, Steve?
Yep.
And posted on the internet news site Raiders News Update, authors Tom Horn and Steve Quayle speculated that it was the disbelievers that were being conned, in this case by a specially created hoax that was in fact part of a larger cosmic conspiracy involving, you guessed it, me.
Well, maybe, Tom, the United Nations was in the airplane parts business and needed a new bomber, and they had to go dig up one or drill for one in the ice. You see, what those guys do is they contradict their very premise. That's what you're bringing up. And, I take that as a compliment. He's making his point, and when we show the Christian perspective on it immediately, you know what I'm saying? He says, of course, this can't be the case, and says it's a bomber. It's like the Black Sea anomaly. It looks like the Millennium Falcon. It has energy still involved in it, and when they send down submersibles, the batteries are drained. It's like a episode out of the Bermuda Triangle. And so the point is this: covered up and covered over. Covered up and covered over. Again, I'll say it. Covered up and covered over. Or sometimes it's the other way. Covered over and covered up. It's just like we've heard for years of the secret chambers. What's his name? The Dutch guy, Gattenberg or Gattenbrink's door. And then they do a cosmic ray, a gamma radiation penetration of the different pyramids in Egypt. And now what Timothy Alberino and the film crew found out in Bolivia is governments are how should I say this, bargaining behind the scenes. The newest underground citadel in Bolivia is basically pyramids and energy sources. You remember when we were ridiculed? And people need to hear this. We were ridiculed by some of the brightest transhumanists in the world. And now even they're talking about autonomous killing machines they may not be able to control. Excuse me? And
right.
The thing is that demon-possessed, sentient cyborgs, here's the thing that people don't get, and I want to make it. When Kurzweil wrote, his book on spiritual machines, well, let's just call it what it is. I mean, Stephen King beat him to the draw on that one when he did Christine. Demon-possessed. We've seen it in history. We've seen it in the history of divination and casting out demons. Look, we're not here trying to do a War of the Worlds broadcast with Doug and Joe. We're here trying to tell people. So, ladies and gentlemen, I consider it an honor when people say to us, well, of course, I'm making this most expensive, I'm talking about Capelito to Franz Josef Land. By the way, the island he landed on was the northernmost island of Franz Josef Land. I said Prince Joseph. Franz Josef Land. And the thing that's fascinating to me, Tom, is that area is complete. Not just the northernmost island, but there's a lot of stuff going on there and a lot of previous expeditions and a lot of UFO activity associated with that.